Welcome to the Blind the Truth podcast, Truth Shots, where real stories meet real healing. I am your host, Destinnee Vance, and today's episode is titled, Healing Begins Where the Lies End. This episode is brought to you by Destinnee is by Choice Support Services because your journey, your voice, and your truth matters. So if you joined me for the last Truth Shot, we talked about something that struck a nerve for a lot of people, especially me. We talked about how the truth didn't need defending, it just needed time. And judging by the messages, comments, and conversations that followed, I know the topic hit home. But as I sat with it, I realized there was another layer to that conversation. Because sometimes the hardest part isn't being the one who told the lie. Sometimes the hardest part is being the one who was lied to. So today, consider this part 2. And honestly, there may even be a part 3. Maybe. Because some truths are too deep to fit into a single conversation. And today I want to talk about something that many people experience but don't always have language for. What happens when you discover that the life you were living wasn't built on truth? What happens when the person you trusted wasn't honest? What happens when the story you believed about a relationship, a friendship, a family member, a situation, or even yourself begins to unravel? Because lies don't just distort reality. They distort people, they distort choices, they distort futures. And when the truth finally arrives, it doesn't just expose what happened, it exposes what has taken. And that can be painful, really painful. Because lies can keep us drowning in life. But what happens when you weren't the one living the lie? You were the one being lied to. That's a different kind of grief. That's a different kind of heartbreak. Because now you're not just processing what happened, you're processing what you thought was happening. You're grieving a version of reality that never actually existed. And nobody talks enough about that. People say, just move on. They say, at least you know now. Or everything happens for a reason. But healing isn't that simple. Because healing begins where the lies end, not before. You can't heal from what you're still denying. And you can't recover from what you're still excusing. And you can't rebuild from a foundation that still is cracked with deception. And that's why truth matters, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. The truth may break your heart, but a lie will break your life. I'm going to say that again. The truth may break your heart, but a lie will break your life. One hurts you once, and the other hurts you repeatedly. Whether it's every day, every decision, every relationship, every opportunity built on false information. The truth hurts, but lies imprison. And some of us have spent years in emotional prisons built by someone else's deceptions. Years questioning ourselves and years second guessing our instincts. Years wondering why things didn't make sense. Years feeling crazy because reality wasn't matching what we were being told. So, I want to talk about it for just a moment. Because one of the cruelest things a lie can do is make you doubt yourself. You stop trusting your intuition. You stop trusting your observations. You stop trusting your own voice. And eventually you begin asking, maybe I am overthinking. Or maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm imagining things. No. Sometimes you were simply seeing the truth before you had proof. Sometimes your spirit knew before your mind could explain it. Sometimes the confusion wasn't because you were broken. It was because deception was present. And deception creates confusion. Truth creates clarity. And that's why when the truth finally comes out, people often describe it as an unexpected feeling of like maybe relief, not because they're happy, not because they're celebrating, but because something finally makes sense. That the piece fits, the puzzle connects, the confusion lifts. And for the first time in a long time, reality matches what they were feeling. That's the beginning of healing, not the end, not the beginning. Because after the truth comes another challenge. Now what? Now that you know, now that you see it, now that the mask has fallen, what do you do next? Do you stay angry forever? Do you become bitter? Do you spend your life trying to get revenge? Do you dedicate your future to providing what happened? Or do you choose healing? Not because what happened was okay, not because there should be no accountability, but because you deserve freedom. See, healing isn't about protecting the person who hurt you. Healing is about releasing yourself. And let me say that again. Healing is not about protecting the person who hurt you. Healing is about releasing yourself. Because carrying resentment is exhausting. And carrying betrayal is exhausting. Carrying anger is exhausting. And that's something that I'm working on because I don't want that exhaustion. Because eventually you have to decide whether you're going to carry the wound forever or start carrying wisdom instead. One keeps you stuck and the other helps you grow. So hear me clearly. Healing does not mean forgetting. You could forgive, but you can't forget. You don't have to forget. Healing does not mean pretending it never happened. Healing does not mean allowing people continue access to your life. Sometimes healing looks like forgiveness. Sometimes healing looks like boundaries. Sometimes healing looks like distance. And sometimes healing looks like peace without reconciliation. Every situation is different, but healing always starts with truth. And you can't heal around the truth. You have to heal through it. And that's uncomfortable. It sucks. Because the truth forces us to face things we'd rather avoid. And sometimes it focuses us on to acknowledge red flags we ignored. And sometimes it forces us to accept that people weren't who we believed they were. And sometimes it forces us to stop waiting for apologies that may never come. And that's difficult, but it's also freeing because once you stop waiting for someone else to validate your experience, you take your power back. You stop needing permission to heal. You stop needing permission to move forward. And you stop needing permission to tell the truth about your own life. And that changes everything. One thing I've learned is that healing rarely arrives all at once. Whew, child, it comes in layers. Because one day you really realize you're thinking about it less. One day you realize it doesn't ruin your whole day anymore. One day you realize the memory still exists, but the pain isn't driving the car. And then one day you realize you're no longer surviving. You're living. And that's beautiful. Just like you. Because healing isn't about becoming who you were before. Sometimes healing is becoming someone stronger than you ever imagined, which is someone wiser, someone more discerning, more compassionate, someone who can recognize truth faster, who values peace more deeply, who understands their worth more clearly. The lie may have you wounded, but it does not have to define you. The betrayal may be part of your story, but it's not the entire story. The deception may explain some chapters, but it does not get the ending. You do. And that's why healing is so powerful. It's a declaration that what happened to you will not determine what happens next. It's a decision to stop giving the lie authority over your future. It chooses truth even when truth hurts. It's choosing growth even when growth is uncomfortable. It's choosing freedom even when freedom requires letting go. And if you're listening today and you're in that place, if you're processing a betrayal or uncovering a truth, or you're grieving what you thought was real, I want you to hear this. You are not behind. You are not ruined. You are not disqualified. You're not you're not too broken to rebuild. You are simply standing at the place where healing begins. Because healing begins where the lies end. Not where perfection starts. Not where answers arrive. Not where justice is guaranteed, but where truth finally enters the room. And once truth enters the room, healing has a chance to breathe. Maybe slowly, maybe imperfectly, maybe one step at a time, but it begins. And that's enough. That's more than enough. So, I want to thank you for joining me again for another Truth Shot. And if this message resonates with you, share it with someone who may needs to hear it. Because the truth has a way of reaching people exactly when they need it the most. And if this conversation stirs something in you, don't be surprised if there's a part 3. Because we're not done talking about what happens after the truth comes out. We're just getting started. So remember, your destiny is by choice, not by chance. And until next time, keep walking in your truth. Bye.